And the first thing that you have to do is make sure that your brand presence aligns with the messaging of the company and also authentically represents who you are. So, a lot of times, most people, when you evaluate their presence, they look like they're looking for a job instead of showing up in a service centric way. The standard way we've been taught, if we've been taught at all, to show up. It's always talking about the things that you've done to get to where you are, right? But it doesn't talk to what you do now. It doesn't reflect everything that you're doing and the impact that you want to make, the goals that you want to have. Talk about how you serve your team, the company, whatever the mission, the goals that you have. That's how you need to present yourself. You really have to lead because now people know, oh, this is what you do. This is what you stand for. This is how you're showing up in the world, and this is how you help and serve. Right. So you got to lead there.
Welcome to the Internal Marketing Podcast, the unique podcast series that flips the marketing conversation from external to internal, exploring all the ways that companies can build the brand and drive growth by engaging and empowering its employees to become powerful ambassadors of the company brand. I'm your host, Kerry-Ann Stimpson, and I'm very happy to bring you this episode where we'll be talking about how employees in the C-suite can build their personal brands. So whether you're a C-suiter yourself, or if you support those in the C-suite with building their personal brands, you're going to want to stick around for this great conversation. But first, make every internal email a great experience with Workshop, the #1 internal marketing email tool. Effortlessly create, send, manage, and measure engaging email campaigns, newsletters, and announcements. Workshop is the easiest email editor ever and streamlines workflows with features like permissions and list management. Their powerful analytics provide valuable insights into engagement, open rates, and more. See why Workshop has become the go-to email tool for internal teams at hundreds of top-tier companies like Panera Bread, HarperCollins, Jim Beam, and more. Go to useworkshop.com. Now, let's jump into this conversation with my featured guest, Cher Jones. Cher is the Your Brand at Work expert, and she's also a corporate trainer and speaker. And she'll be sharing how employees in the C-suite can build their personal brands. Hi, Cher. Welcome to the Internal Marketing Podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm very, very happy that you've taken the time to be with me here today. How are you?
Kerry-Ann, I am fantastic. And I'm really excited about being on your show today because you talk to my kind of people. So we hanging out with the same people and I love it.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great conversation. So, we're talking about how companies can empower their C-suiters to start building their brands. And I know this is a contentious topic, and we'll probably go into why in a little bit. But before we do, I always like to start out my conversation, share with a level setting question. And today's level setting question is, what is a personal brand? And I know different people have different definitions of what that may be. But from your perspective and in your experience, how would you define a personal brand and how exactly does it show up online?
Oh, I love this question because, like you said, there are a lot of different definitions, but I've been able to narrow it down to something super simplified. And I would say that your personal brand is the story people tell themselves about you and the expectations they have based off of what they know. So, branding is your opportunity to guide that expectation and help tell better stories so that when people are working with you, they know what to expect. You've level set their expectations and you have better conversations, better working experiences. You excite people to want to work with you, for you, and refer you. So these are things that you can actually influence through the power of personal branding. But again, at the end of the day, your personal brand is the story people tell themselves about you and the expectations they have of what they think it's like to work with you.
I love that. The story that people tell themselves about you. So it's not even what you say about yourself entirely, really. It's what others are saying about you. I really appreciate that. And it's critical to have this conversation, share, because As leaders, and when we talk about C-suiters building a personal brand, I'd love to also get from you, Share, why should a C-suiter even care about wanting to build a personal brand online?
I think from the perspective that they are the leader of the company, it sets the tone for the culture and the reflection of the culture that they have within the company that they are leading. So I think that's incredibly important because part of our brand, especially as a leader, I have 5 KPIs that I like to talk about. And they are your personal brand should make people want to work with you, work for you, refer you, champion you, and learn from you. And those are the role that is the role of a leader at the end of the day. And one of the biggest things is around talent attraction. Why would I want to work with you, especially now in the way that the talent market is? We have to showcase, leaders have to showcase what kind of environment that they are offering to the world, right? Because their talent and their people are absolutely connected to the entire brand experience, right? From the level of experience um, to how people interact with the brand and deciding of whether or not they want to work with them. So as a leader, I think is it incredibly important that you stand out in front. That doesn't mean you need to be LinkedIn's next top CEO where you have a massive brand. I'm not saying that at all, but you do need to have a presence to reflect the company that you lead.
And I think that that's very important, Cher, because as the leader, yes, the CEO is the obvious head honcho of the company, and probably you could say the chief brand ambassador, whether they like it or not, but also anyone in the C suite at that level, that executive level, really, they represent the brand, again, whether they like it or not. And I think you're right. It's so very important that they recognize that how their brand occurs is online and in their communities really is a reflection of the company. While some would argue that that's the obvious answer, Share, what in your view is the personal benefit to an executive, a C-suiter who is thinking about building a personal brand online?
I think what you need to do is, as a C-suiter, is start to look at it, your brand as a success tool. It opens up doors, it creates better conversations, it builds more trust in your ability to lead. Your network is an asset. So and this is the thing that I believe that most executive leaders need to recognize is that they can't get to the next level, whatever that might be. And that may not be within the company they're currently at, but wherever they're going without a level of digital presence that reflects their leadership presence because it is now embedded into the fabric of what we're doing. And we see many leaders, especially in the time of crisis, their brands have become something that the company has been able to leverage in a positive way, even if it's during a negative situation. And I think that's really important. So that's one reason. Of course, from a marketability perspective, as far as talent attraction, retention, sales, industry leadership, these things definitely weigh in on the stories that the media are talking about. If that company is attracting that sort of media attention, um, partnerships, they're looking at who is leading the company. So again, all of these things come back to your question around what's in it for me, the leader, is it's a reflection of my success and it's a tool for me to continue to be successful and it can no longer be ignored. So what the leader now has to do is determine what their presence looks like because it doesn't have to be the cookie cutter approach. I am whoever the next top leader is on LinkedIn. You don't have to have that level of presence to have a presence that is winning for you. And it is a win-win opportunity for both you and the company you lead.
I love that. And Cher, I know you're certainly very, very prominently active on LinkedIn, but also you're a corporate trainer and you've been interacting and interfacing with a lot of companies and company leaders across North America and I'm sure even across the world. And from what you see, can you share any examples of C-suiters and probably more specifically CEOs. Yeah, we're just going to put the CEOs out there. Do you know of anyone who, in your opinion, is getting it right when we talk about building their personal brand online?
Well, usually the default answer, and it's a default for a reason, is Sarah Blakely, and she is the CEO of Spanx, and she's doing a tremendous job of being relatable. She reflects the company that she has built from the ground up. She attracts the right talent. She is constantly attracting media for her investors, and her brand definitely reflects the company. And oftentimes within that same mix of leaders, we'll see a lot of chief marketing officers will make those top lists. I think this is what happens, is that the average CEO who's not a marketing officer necessarily and has that marketing talent or whatnot of that natural bent to market themselves are looking at these people like, I can't do that and I don't want to be that. And I want to assure you that that's okay, but it doesn't let you off the hook. You need to start thinking about, well, what are your goals? And then surely in most companies now, they're looking at their talent and from within and developing company influencers, employee brand advocates. And there are so many opportunities right now that, and I call this the hidden opportunity market within corporations, where those who are actively leveraging their social and their online brand as a part of their success toolkit, they're getting visibility within a company. But the visibility then starts at the top. So if the leadership is showing that, yes, we are a social company and here's a way that we can use it, that of course cascades into the inspiration and the opportunities and seeing CEOs being a part of employee branded content. And what I mean by that is like podcasts where they bring on the CEO and to have those discussions. It creates this level of accessibility. And again, showcases what it's like to work within that organization or who is the talent that's running it and the vibe and energy that you get from that.
And thanks for sharing that. Sarah has been doing a great job, and the success of her company, I think, could arguably be a tangible measure of what can happen when you have a CEO who is willing to build a personal brand online, put themselves out there, and also what inures to the benefit of the company. I mean, I asked earlier about the benefits personally to the C-suite or the
Mhm.
CEO who wants to put themselves out there. Can you share perhaps any tangible benefits that the company would get from a C suite that's active in building their personal brands, including the CEO?
I think at the end of the day, we all want to see who's leading. And it's a reflection of what's going on behind the scenes as well. And it makes the company more accessible. It does paint the picture to what's happening. So what does that content look like? Well, it really varies. And a lot of the times, and I think one of the best opportunities or missed opportunities that an easy entry point is through what I call employee generated content. So EGC, we heard about UGC, which is user generated content, but directly inside companies, it is so easy to capture moments of interaction, moments of culture, moments of this is what's going on and this is what we're learning, this is what we're doing. And having the CEO or having any member of the leadership team engaging and interacting with the growth of the company, and that could be from product development to employee culture events, whatnot, and seeing them at play in action, um, rolling up the sleeves and sharing insights and making it more accessible for everybody else. So going back to that whole concept of EGC, those candid shots, those moments, those reflections, those leadership lessons that reflect who they are, and the company that they are leading or the division that they are leading, whatever the case may be, I think is so incredibly important and not just in front of the perfect lights with the best cameras and and the script in front of them. It just humanizes the people side of the brand experience at all levels. And I think that we need to look for better opportunities to do that, as well as even thought leadership. So that's more of a polished and perfected version of that, which is important. I thought of another CEO, which she is now out on her own, but Rosemont St. John, who just recently launched a book. Her visibility as a leader, so she wasn't a CEO, but a C-suite leader, definitely allowed her to access to the top of the top companies. And she said something really poignant on a LinkedIn interview when she said, "Nobody started talking about me until I started talking about me." And again, while we are looking at these top level companies, let us not forget there are so many companies out there where, yes, you don't have the Apple highlights of your life or Netflix or anything like that, but you do lead a company and you are changing lives through the work that you do. So let's talk about it.
No one started to talk about me until I started to talk about me. I love that. It's, I think, logical, everything that you've been sharing, share the benefits to the person, the C-suite, or the benefits to the company, and why it's so important to have C-suiters as the chief ambassadors of the brand and putting themselves out there and building their personal brands online. But I guess my next question is, why aren't more of them doing it, right? It's like, hello. It's obviously super beneficial both to the company and to the individual. Why do you think more folks aren't doing it?
The three main fears. First being time, and that is probably the biggest one. I don't have the time for that. And it's interesting. It's like, make the time. And that doesn't mean that you need to be out there in these LinkedIn streets commenting and doing what is the conventional wisdom for putting your brand out there. But you do have to have a strategy that makes sense for the capacity that you do have, right? And in that time piece, sometimes, and this is where we see it often fail, is or not just it doesn't launch. There's a failure to launch is when you have other people running your brand for you, which is the case. And this is why we're seeing so many general mediocre brand presence from leaders because it's not their presence. We know when it's them. We can feel it. And that doesn't mean you can't have the support of a team who is helping you do that. And that's what I really want to, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's you or them. You can collaboratively work with somebody who understands um, the key messaging of the company and understands your voice, and you work with them to do that. And you can batch your time. So meaning that you can batch create content so you have a schedule, but don't be afraid to put out, again, those more candid, employee generated content moments where it's just on the fly that, that is what your people will love. And so that's time, right? And I don't have time for that. And they see the Sarah Blakely's of the world, and they're like, I definitely don't have time for that. And all those comments, I'm going to be inundated. And so that becomes that fear, right? Also, that fear of it's almost like an imposter syndrome fear of what if I don't get that fanfare that Rosamund St. John or Sarah Blakely get? What if I don't get that? Am I going to look like a failure? And the answer is no, you're not. What you want to do is definitely work with your comms team so you make sure you have a strategy behind what you're doing or work with a professional that can make sure that you're choosing your alignments as far as your content, how you what's your mission? Because sometimes what it is, it comes down to, well, this is how I'm going to use my presence for this particular mission. And this is my lane and I'm going to stay there, which is kind of like safety. And that's okay to have a one lane kind of thing. And that's going to be your thing while you're online. But again, so I guess what I'm getting to is in around the strategy, but the fear of not, it is that imposter syndrome fear. And then finally, there's the fear of, I don't know what to say about myself. I don't know how to use the tech properly, to be honest. Right. So there's this fears on not knowing what to do. Right. So there's the imposter syndrome fear. There's certainly the time fear, but also that I don't know. I don't know. But here's the thing is there's support no matter which fear you look at. And there are ways to move around that and past that and have a realistic soft launch to building your brand that makes sense for you and your goals.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's so many of those points that I myself, again, as a C-suiter, can identify with is time and fair. I mean, I know for me, it took me quite a while. I was a lurker on LinkedIn for years, not even commenting because I just didn't think that I could say something valuable or certainly comparably as valuable as other folks who are putting out great content on LinkedIn, and I gotta give a special big up to my virtual mentor, Paul C. Brunson. He's actually
Oh,
the one who pointed me in your direction, Cher, and how I found you on LinkedIn when he told me about Just Ask Share Live, and that's how I saw you, and we started to engage and stuff. And just the important point that he shared that wherever you were yesterday, someone else is there today.
mhm.
And so, whatever you learned from your journey, that aspect of your journey yesterday, you can turn around and help that person who's there today. So, you don't need to be 20 years ahead in the game, 30 years ahead, not even 2 hours ahead. It's really just about what can you share with someone that you learned as recently as yesterday who's there and trying to figure it out. And it really has been wonderful just recognizing that you can share that with someone and they'll find it important and valuable. And yeah, it's just about choosing and investing the time. I mean, share for those folks like myself, I'm in marketing and I know my team, we're always eager to encourage our CEOs and other C-suiters to get engaged, get on LinkedIn or wherever is
Mhm.
their preferred platform to start building their personal brands. And I know I struggle with helping them to shift their mindset. What can we do? What can companies and marketers and communicators who are in these kind of supporting roles? We know the benefits. How do we help our C-suiters to shift their mindsets to want to embrace this as part of their career journey?
Okay, so one of the things that you definitely have to find out first is what's holding them back. Because when you can address that, usually it's one or two of those fears, is not all of them. They just don't know. So um, I would then say that you definitely need to figure out what that is. Because if it's time, well, then you work around their schedule. If it's fear of I don't know what to say, you provide the direction. And oftentimes you can look at opportunities to create content that solves a problem. And that's really, quite frankly, what content should be. What's the problem that you're solving? And it could be what to tie back what you were saying before is I'm creating content for the leader I was 5 years ago. And that could be your mission. So giving them a very clear mission on what their presence is so that you can kind of narrow the focus because social and building your brand and professionally putting your brand out there again taps into that imposter syndrome piece, but when you can shift it into a service centric mindset. So again, looking at your content and saying, okay, with you, what we're going to do is you're going to help the leader you were 5 years ago. And why will that help you? Not only are you giving back, but you're also attracting leaders who want to work with you because you're already showing how you pour into them. So that could be the strategy. Again, tying their strategy to a business goal makes it make sense. Giving them that opportunity to shine and looking at, well, what's the best opportunity for them to shine? Because not, let's face it, not everybody is going to be great on video, but that doesn't mean you can't be on video, right? So you got to look at, well, how are we going to use video for you? Is it just a candid kind of conversation where we're going to slice that together, tips and tricks? Or is it we're going to catch you in photos and we're going to get your voice? Or are we just going to transcribe some of the things you said because you're not comfortable? It's baby steps, but it's working with them and letting them know that we're going to work with you and we're going to help you through this. And again, helping with that narrow focus on of what they're going to do, their current presence and what it's going to accomplish. And then letting them know that they have the support behind it is really important. And then also looking for opportunities for them to collaborate with somebody else within the organization. And it doesn't have to be another leader. It can be those who are out there doing the work, developing the products. And when I say leader, I meant at the C suite level. You don't have to keep it at that class, right? You want to offer and extend that brand recognition, because also that other piece is that pride of association that we see with employees. And it doesn't always have to be about performance. It could be about a cultural impact. It could be about a support impact. So there's so many different ways that you can look at this. But ultimately, partnering with them also shows other employees, oh, so you are looking. So you're saying there's a chance. And then one last tip for CEOs or C suite leaders who are not ready for the spotlight: go and support the employees who are. So get out there. And when I say support, send them a DM. You'll blow their mind. It doesn't have to be public. Yes, it'd be great if you liked it. But can you imagine if I got a voice note from a leader that I admire and respect? It's like all of a sudden you're letting people know that you're watching. You see it. They're seen, they're heard, they're recognized. And so much of that is what we want: to be recognized and rewarded for what we do. And those things matter when it comes to retention.
I love that. I love that. Just giving a word of encouragement and just accolades to someone who's already putting themselves out there. It's great. And I appreciate those tips, share, because it really starts with providing that kind of support to help shift mindset so that C-suiters see what's possible, right? They see
Yes.
that whatever barriers they've put in their heads mentally that are preventing them from putting themselves out there, if you can help to shift their mindset by showing how fixable or adjustable those barriers are, then I think it will certainly go a long way. I mean, Sharna, we're coming down to the latter part of our discussion, and my next question is really around what are the first, perhaps, couple of steps that you could share with us, two or three steps that someone can take away from this conversation and go and implement in their company right now?
So right now I'm thinking about a few C-suiters that I'm working with right now in individual different companies. And the first thing that you have to do is make sure that your brand presence aligns with the messaging of the company and also authentically represents who you are. So a lot of times, most people, when you evaluate their presence, they look like they're looking for a job instead of showing up in a service centric way. And I'll explain what that means is when you look like you're looking for a job on LinkedIn, which is the standard way we've been taught, if we've been taught at all, to show up. It's always talking about the things that you've done to get to where you are, right? That's the standard focus. Here's where I've worked. Here's what I've done. And and all the stuff. I mean, all the laundry list of things that got you there. Like, that's great. But it doesn't talk to what you do now. It doesn't support you in your current role. It doesn't reflect everything that you're doing and the impact that you want to make, the goals that you want to have. It just talks about the things that you did. And those things are important, but they have their place. So, what we need to, instead of leading with what we've done, lead with what you do. Talk about how you serve your team, the company, whatever the mission, the goals that you have. That's how you need to present yourself. And then you can talk about why you're qualified to do what you said you do. And then there you go. There's your laundry list of all the things you've done. So don't worry, it's not going away. It just doesn't deserve your lead, right? You really have to lead because now people know, oh, this is what you do. This is what you stand for. This is how you're showing up in the world, and this is how you help and serve. Right. So you got to lead there. Right. So that's the first thing I would say is start with messaging.
And it's good, I guess, to provide points of inspiration that you can share, things that can inspire your C-suiters to start to talk about and share stories around and messaging. As a little sidebar question, though, share to what extent does sharing personal content fit in? And I think that's also an issue with C-suiters as well. How personal is too personal, especially on a platform like LinkedIn? Because maybe
Mhm.
for a lot of us, it's kind of easy to talk about what we do and what we've done to get here. But I think too, kind of just sharing the fact that, yeah, I'm the CMO of a big major multi-billion dollar company, but I'm a mom and tomorrow's Monday and it's school and I'm combing my daughter's hair. And yeah, I got my satin bonnet on to keep my hair intact
Mhm.
too. Uh, it's so powerful, I thought, a share like that because it speaks to vulnerability, it speaks to authenticity. But I think too, C-suiters, not all C-suiters kind of see a role for that. I mean, what's your view where that is concerned in terms of sharing more human, personal, vulnerable content?
I think human content is definitely valuable. I think there's levels to this though, and it depends on the brand. And it's almost like your brand and the way that you have defined it as far as your public brand, right? We don't have to be transparent to be authentic. We don't have to show everything that's going on. However, there are some people who are more comfortable doing that. And while there can be risks, and there certainly are, you may even polarize your audience, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It depends on the messaging behind the actual post behind. It's like, what is it you want to accomplish out of that? And for her, it was encouraging moms, saying, listen, I am a real person doing real people stuff, real mom stuff, and this is what I'm working with, right? And that is good for her. But you might not be at that level where you're willing to again be that level of transparency, and you don't have to. But what I suggest people do is use what I call an Easter egg strategy, especially when you're starting to put out there and you're starting to put yourself out there. You want to think about the stuff that um, are not necessarily connected to work, but you could have a conversation with anybody at work about. There could be a camera rolling, you don't care. So let's say you love Marvel movies, right? That's your thing. For me, the soundtrack of my life is definitely hip hop music and it's literally been around for 50 years. And I know that in fact, I just creating a post about five hip hop lyrics that I have transformed into personal branding lessons. So now what I've done is I am able to marry something that is important to me. And believe it or not, hip hop music is actually important to me because it's definitely embedded into who I am and also what I do. So you can look like there's ways to reveal pieces of you. And that's an Easter egg for some people. So those who are like hip hop aficionados or just casual fans, they're like, oh, that's something new, right? And they get to learn more about you. So you can look for ways that you can infuse your brand. You can talk about things that you're willing to be public with. That doesn't mean you have to show everything. So what I suggest you do is pick your areas that you're willing to share. And then what's the goal? You're not just sharing for sharing's sake. Usually the easiest way is again, encouraging words and lessons learned. If you take those two paths with what you can take from your private life into your public life, that then becomes something that's much more palatable and very focused. So you can stay with it's really a communications plan for your brand. You're just staying in alignment and then you have a purpose for which you're putting stuff out there.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think there's definitely a place for it once you've defined what those guardrails are. And also bearing in mind, I think there's also an opportunity to share encouragement through those types of content,
Mhm.
but also even information. I remember one time I did a post on LinkedIn when I was sharing my journey with braces, right? And
Yeah.
I put on braces well into my 40s, and some people are like, you're an old woman. What are you doing with braces? Forget that. And I decided I was going to do it. And I posted a little bit about it, and I was so happy after 2+ years of braces and jaw surgery. And you had people in the comments saying, wow, a middle aged woman with braces, I've been holding
Mhm.
back because I thought I was too old. I'm going to do it too. So it's really just an opportunity to build community, and it's not just about sharing your journey for sharing its sake, but recognizing that you're building community and you're helping people who are probably struggling in a way that you wouldn't have known had you not shared. And you've poured into someone else when you do that. Share, this has been such a great conversation. And I'm down to that part of the discussion where we talk about our final nugget or final takeaway. And I know you would have shared so much awesome information here. And I'd love to know from your perspective, what's the key takeaway that you'd love our audience to come away with having listened to everything you would have shared?
I definitely want to remind people that your brand matters. And again, you have the opportunity to inform the story that other people are telling about you. You have the opportunity to level that up by sharing what it is you do and how you serve first, as opposed to what you've done. You have an opportunity to make sure you develop a brand that supports you in your role, that helps you build your future, and also makes the company brand look good too. You just have to be strategic about it, but you must know that we can't get there the same way leaders 10 years ago got there. You have to build a brand that works for you. And there's more than one way to do that. So don't look at the standard LinkedIn advice and say, I'm going to build my brand on LinkedIn. Because sometimes LinkedIn is, for most people in corporate settings, LinkedIn is just a tool. It is not their brand. So building your brand at work is a full strategy that includes LinkedIn, but it's not just about LinkedIn. And there's just so much opportunity that if you invest the time, effort, and energy, it is the gift that keeps on giving.
Thank you for that, Cher. And I second that encouragement and I receive it too. Cher, I down to the final question I ask all my awesome guests who so willingly and generously come and share their expertise, their insights with us. And that question is, Cher, how can we, the internal marketing tribe, support you?
Thank you for asking that question. I really appreciate it. The one thing that you can do as part of the tribe is take a look at some of the services that I offer because they are all about training your leaders and their teams how to build their personal brands at work, from how they show up to the content they create. And I have several different offerings that really boost that confidence, but yet make it very strategic for them and for the companies that they work for. So they're comprehensive programs, and also just talks around introducing them to the idea of leveraging their personal brand at work because it does matter and it can create an incredible future for themselves as well as make their companies look good as well. So I've got training programs. A lot of them are virtual, which is incredible, and they are transformational. Imagine having your employees actually being comfortable posting about what they do at work, the stories they share, the content that you produce. These amplifiers just need the tools to do it. And then the opportunity for you to partner and collaborate those with those incredible employee influencers and employee creators that you have. And the final thing that I'll leave you with, and this is my gift for free, over on LinkedIn Learning, I have a program all about working with your employee creators and developing a strategy around that. And there's tons of ideas just to help you get started and build that strategy for what can be incredible for your company, whether you're working with your leadership and as well as your talent.
Awesome. And yes, folks. And first of all, folks, if you're not following Cher on LinkedIn, you're missing out. So, first thing that you have to do is head over to LinkedIn, follow Cher. You do have a YouTube channel as well, which I know has your content. And I actually go back and watch and listen from time to time as well. We're going to keep the links in the show notes. So, if anybody wants to know how to find Cher, we'll leave her linked to her website and to her LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And yes, definitely check out her course in LinkedIn Learning. And I will also leave the link in the show notes as well. So, Cher, thank you so very much again for taking the time to come and share with us an awesome topic that I don't think gets the focus that it deserves oftentimes. So, I'm very excited. And I hope that a lot of our listeners would have taken away some nuggets. And for those C-suiters, put yourself out there. The world needs to hear your voices. And for those teams who are supporting C-suiters in building their brands, we know you would have gotten some great takeaways as well. So, Sheriff, thank you so very much. All the very best to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Kerry-Ann. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Internal Marketing Podcast. I'm sure you got some great takeaways from this conversation. And if you haven't already subscribed to the Internal Marketing Podcast, then please join the tribe. And don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with anyone whom you believe will find it valuable as well. I'm your host, Kerry-Ann Stimson, and I look forward to your joining me next time.